Welcome everybody to the final installment of the UKEL 2021 spring season. This is the last match in the promotion tournament, Mythos versus Munster Rugby Gaming. My name is Trajan, I'm joined by Reclamation, so Rec, give me your initial thoughts heading into this.
Good afternoon. So, from what we saw yesterday, Mythos looking the stronger of the two. I think that's kind of a given that other people are agreeing with anyway as well. Munster have obviously made a last minute change with Bear Tree coming in. Not too sure on the reasoning as to why. I think it might just be a case of player difference in terms of familiarity. With both Raisins and Bear Tree having played together before, that's the logical reasons I can see. But Mythos, on the other hand, looking really strong there yesterday against Resolve in a bit of a nail biter of a series despite the scoreline.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they looked like they had a lot of opportunities to take that one down, and it was the very, very fine margins that Resolve Academy were able to sneak out ahead on and end up winning. So yeah, I think I would favour Mythos as well today. Of course, they did finish 7th as opposed to 8th. They finished higher up in the standings. And both of these teams have gone through the recent roster changes, but Mythos with a larger one right at the very end, replacing the whole bot lane, bringing in Affengeist and Blundering. And even in that series yesterday versus Resolve, I think they were really stepping up. This team just looks like it's getting better and better, and it's such a shame that it happened right at the last second. So, you know, the growth potential is maybe at risk of being wasted.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. Like, the changes came in, they're good changes, but they were just too late for the regular season. I think they're starting to bear fruits now when we're starting to hit the relegation promotion series, and you're starting to see Mythos. It's all kind of coming together very slowly, albeit. Munster, obviously making some changes themselves. They're trying to keep things fresh and maybe try some things out, but they found some success with some of the changes, but others haven't looked as good. And as we get into pick and ban here for our final series of the UKEL season.
Absolutely. Here we go, straight through the Seraphine off the table. At least we can rely on some things like that staying the same. There's quite a lot of factors going into this draft. Jungle, of course, has been a very heavily prioritized role, and Dunlossie has been one of the strongest junglers in the UKL in the season. Despite being in the relegation match, I think people would agree that he's still one of the best players in that role that we have to offer. So, you know, does the Hecarim ever get allowed through? Does he go back to the ganking options? He's pulled out weird things like the Vibe before. There's a lot of directions I think Dunlossie can go in.
See, personally, for me, I think you just take out some of the staples, like the Holy Trinity of like Udyr, Lilia, Hecarim, tend to be like the three. With Volibear now thrown in, obviously 11.6 and 7, kind of in the trade-off. But just seeing Mythos starting to ban those away, which then, in reality, leaves that you might be able to pull a meta jungler and go in that direction. And then, no matter what he pulls out, you should be okay from a power level standpoint. But the Nocturne taken away, Hecarim taken away. We're starting to see more bans come in. I think they're going to be a little bit more personalised on the side of Munster. So let's see what they go with.
Yeah, it's going to be the Rel away from Blundering, so leaving the Thresh up, and Blundering does focus his champion quite a lot. I think a lot of supports are going towards the Thresh right now, but Rel, we saw yesterday in the series of X7 versus Munster, Royals Rel was picking them apart and completely destroying Munster at every turn, so I'm not surprised they don't want to see any more of that champion in their bottom lane, but we'll see what their B1 priority is going to go towards.
See, if I'm Munster here, I think I'm on the line of you take Thresh here, for Raisins being a playmaking support, you deny Blundering, and then on the other hand is that you can still trade off with junglers later on down the line because there's still 2 power picks available in the Lilia and the Volibear. So I think that might be a viable route. If not, let's see what they go with, because Tristana is open.
Yeah, and Keverman was looking very strong on this champion yesterday as well. Almost brought that series back versus X7 multiple times with this pick. So they're going to go for that, and let's see what Mythos want to take. I think the Thresh needs to come in before too long, but then given the Alistair's gone, what does Raisins then go into to pair with the Tristana?
I mean, there's still Gragas, there's still a number of melee supports like Nautilus available, like soft counters that could go into Thresh. I think he'll be absolutely fine with just taking something that's engage, basically. It seems to be his MO, like Raisins and Munster play best when he is the one making the decisions of when they should and should not engage and fight. As you see here, the trade-off with Thresh and Graves locked in, which I think it's a little bit bemusing. I think you just go into Lilia here, and then you take a nice AP jungle route into Graves, and I think you're okay with that, personally. Not too sure about the high preference on Graves, but I guess Dunlocy, being the hard carry that he is, wants to get something he has priority with. There's Monster here just running through their options, but I think they should settle on the Lilia.
Yep, it's going to be the classic. We're going to go back to a few patches in the past where it was just Graves Lilia every game, but Dunlocy, you know, this guy plays Graves in a pretty hypey style. We've seen the level 2 ganks from Dunlocy's Graves before, so we'll need to keep an eye on what he chooses to do if he wants to scale up and be the carry, or if he wants to still get stuck into the lanes and get himself in and amongst it, as we know he loves to do. Currently, Munster hovering the Nautilus, as he suggested, one of the decent counters in there. Still great setup for Kevman, still feels pretty good, so it's going to be mid and top running through to the second phase.
Like, as I said, it's only a soft one. If you actually talk to some Thresh players or Nautilus players, it can go either way depending on micro interactions. So I think it's a bit more like of a skill matchup from now on. We'll see how it goes, but I think on third answer here, you should probably just try and take something mid laner, like, or you're in to take an AD carry that you can stay safe with. Zaya locked in here, and then I could see them in a world where they're going to start banning AD carries now, assuming that Tristana goes to the mid lane with Bear Tree.
Yes, I mean, I personally don't really know that much about Bear Tree. He played the Sylas yesterday, and that was looking decent. The rest of the game was in a bit of a tough spot, though, so I don't think we really got to see enough out of Bear Tree just because of how the games were going, so I'd be interested to see if he can step up now and really, you know, show us why that Munster has put him into this mid lane, because Polyakov seemed to be getting better and had a lot of impact for them, but they've evidently made this decision for a reason, and I want to see what that reason is.
To give you a little bit of enlightenment, Bear Tree in his UKEL and like when he was playing at the higher level was to be playing in top lane instead. That was his residency home. Like where he was playing a number of weak side champions. He was known as being the very stable guy, very able to hold his own, not give anything up and be a secondary carry later on.
He did play the silent mid yesterday as well, so I guess that's coming through.
And then he's come back to mid lane. He plays a lot of mid lane in solo queue. He's just a good solo laner, so I guess Munster saw that as being a viable route for them. As Sion taken away, no shenanigans, Velkoz's taken out, and I think they're just starting to hit Man Robbo's champion pool here. Like, I think maybe worth having a look at that Orianna, but then it's Tristana versus Orianna matchup, which you're kind of happy with. So
Yeah,
I guess
Manrobo did feel like more of a passive player in the mid lane, in the laning phase. Loves the control mage pool, the Azirs, the Anivias, the Oriannas. Pulled the Veigar out yesterday as well, so there's a bit of spice hiding in there, and obviously the Velkoz's taken away, so we'll have to keep an eye on that to make sure we don't get bamboozled. But it's the Gragas taken away by Mythos this time. Shido was actually playing 2 games of Gragas yesterday, 1 AP, 1 tank, but they don't want to let that one go over themselves today.
Okay. True, yeah, and I'm looking at that, and I think the Karma was a good ban. But I think if you're actually in this situation, TF becomes quite a nice option just to play. Well, TF and Ori are like my 2 that you'd play with Graves. Ooh, showing of okay. So if they go with Yorick here, I assume we're on live patch. So Yorick on live patch for everyone is a little bit busted. So I love the little hover there just to be like, hey, reminder. Taking Orianna there instead. Smarter option with your mid lane. Leaves top open as a counter, and then see what Munster decide to answer with.
Yeah, if they want to give Bear Tree the strong matchup in mid, or if they want to just Kevman the best carry option, possibly one of the best carry options in the game right now, into that bottom lane. I wouldn't be surprised to see Synapse go into that Ornn, but it is going to be the Gnar instead, so that's another of his most picked champions in that in this current season, and obviously Gnar is just completely nutso up in that top side. But Shida does tend to play a fair amount of these niche picks or these carry picks. It's not all tank utility duty for this player, so maybe he could look for something to try and punish.
Yeah, I think given the way things might work out, in that Tristana isn't 100% going to go to mid lane because we don't know if they're going to flex it or not, and this is why I think that if they took Ornn top lane, then they would be forced into putting Tristana mid lane. Just because of the damage spread in their team. So then they've alternatively gone with the Sylas instead. Some nice ults with Graves, Orianna ult. Maybe not the greatest pick in the world for me personally, but certainly viable. You just see here, just an answer out into the Gnar pick, which there are a number of options like Urgot is a safe one. They've actually banned Scion on Gragas themselves, which is actually two of the greatest answers. So I think the Gnar there was actually a very, they made it a very viable pick for themselves. And then we go into the set.
Going back to the set, I believe that was his most played as well in the season of the few games that he got through. I think it was about 6 games, maybe 8 games throughout that season. So the set coming through into the Gnar, I mean, it's ranged into melee. It doesn't sound that good to me on the surface of things.
Initial levels, yeah, you're right. It's melee versus ranged. However, Set can deal quite well with his passive. From dealing, taking the poke and autos, and then he just basically if he wishes and Graves comes up to top lane, he uses his E, W, Q, he can actually all in on mini Gnar. And then later on, when he becomes big Gnar, Set is actually quite good into it. He's still fine. So team fight wise, it gets a stamp of approval for me. I'm just a little worried about it's quite a short range team into Lilia and Silas, who are going to heal through you and then also basically sleep you as well while stealing your ultimate. So I think Beartree has a lot of skill expression in this game where he could actually really take it over if he gets ahead and accelerates, because if he gets into a side lane, I mean, who do you think he's going to answer?
Yes. It's not an easy question to answer for sure for Mythos, so maybe they'll just have to avoid the question altogether. But it does seem like both teams have locked in a lot of comfort picks for themselves. They've kind of handshaken a lot of this thing, like the Blundering got the Thresh back, Synapse got the Gnar, Kevinman's back on hard carries, Manrobber got the classic Orianna, even though it was like maybe a risky pick at that point in the draft, still just took it, just went, no, I know I can play this champion to a high level, I'm going to play it and it's going to be fine. So whether it is fine, we'll have to see, but this is, of course, no more time for experimenting really that hard, no more time to put a foot wrong. This, maybe comfort is just the best way to go when your UKL life is on the line here.
And just so everyone knows, I'm not biased. I have worked with Mythos and Munster, so I cannot pick somebody to win on this one. I'm going to avoid all predictions because I genuinely just want to see two teams going at it tooth and nail, trying to keep them fight for their lives. Yeah. And my worry is that we might be leaning too far into comfort at times and avoiding some of the best picks, and you might end up putting yourself in a bit of a hole that you have to climb out of. I think in this draft, though, for both teams, they've avoided that, and they've come out with something that both teams equally have win conditions of their own. Mythos leaning into that Dunlosi, and also Munster, as you said, Beartree, Kevinman. You're looking at those people to say, please, win us the game.
Please, somebody's got to do it for us. Looking across the runes, or the summoner spells, I should say, there's nothing too out of place as far as I can see. The quad TP, as is so common here. So, bot lane could become a big focus if they end up committing those resources down there, and Munster love to play through Kevinman. That has been kind of their bread and butter throughout the season, whereas Mythos just got the new bot lane, so maybe they're not quite as used to focusing all their attention down there. Dunlosi, of course, could go anywhere and do anything. I have a hard time working out what Dunlosi's patterns are. He seems just very strong across all areas of the game, and like I say, could just go anywhere, could go to any lane and just show up where you don't expect him.
I think that, honestly, Dunlosi is one of the most aggressive junglers in the UKL. Like, straight up, like, people were voting him top 2 because he just generates leads for himself and he makes Mythos tick through him. It's the demanding nature that he has. Yeah. And let's see if he's going to be able to pull us, because in my mind, I'm looking at this and saying he's not particularly going to have priority through top lane. He will get it through bot lane if he lets them go to the wave at level 1, and mid lane should go in favor of Orianna early on. So he's got 2 lanes of prio that he can play with. As you can see there, Dunlosi being voted in the top 2 despite his position with the team. And in reality, he's got a lot of early options he can play with that enable his game to try and really force into this Lilia. However, there is a nuance to that in that Lilia is one of the champions that can go with basically any jungle path in the game that she wants and do it solo. So I want to see how they answer that back out and try to avoid Dunlosi in the early pathing.
It is so rough, honestly, to see the jungle MVP graphic there with Dunlosi second, not that far behind Johnny Rico, who just yesterday, I think it was, or very recently, was fighting to promote into the UKLC. Meanwhile, Dunlucy ended up in 7th. Like, that's the difference, the disparity between how these two players placed, but the obvious impact they're both having is so crazy. And that just, I think, speaks to how strong the UKL has become just in this year. And then this is in the promotion tournament where he's about to be relegated, you know, potentially. It's so rough when the two new teams come out of the open tournament 2-0'd over both of their opponents, and the UKL is about to get even stronger. You know, for Mythos, this is such a consistent problem for the team. They're always just outside of playoffs or last place in playoffs. They can never quite find consistent success, and now they get what is possibly one of their best rosters ever, or I would say their best roster they've ever had, and now they're about to get relegated. That is crazy that that's happening.
I mean, you said it yourself. The level of play, the floor, just keeps going up and up and up, and with that, so does the ceiling. So when you're looking at it that way, it's either acclimatize or get out of the way, really. Yeah. And we've seen a lot of players come and go through the years now, and we're starting to really get to the point now where it's new names that me as a dinosaur of the UK scene hasn't seen before. And I'm really happy for that. And I'm seeing names in here that some I recognize and some are brand new to me. And honestly, I feel for them. This might be their first situation of being in this kind of pressure in a series that they need to win. Let's see how they deal with it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, you said it right. They need to win here. This is the last opportunity to do so. As we get onto the rift for Munster Rugby Gaming versus Mythos, fighting to remain in the UKEL. We are just going to have a 5-point here. No one wants to throw the UKL away on a bad invade, that's for sure.
And I think things at level 1 here would be a point to avoid. It's not necessarily good for either team, aside from what you may give away, unless they've thought of something funky. But it looks like we're just going to be nice, cool, calm, collected. Just go into standard pathing here as Graves drops his ward, comes back with the red trinket to stop any late invades.
Yeah.
And I think... Ooh, so, sorry to cut you off here, but there's a really smart adaptation that MLG have just done. So... Dunlucy, if you don't know or haven't watched him, very often likes to do invades early on. I think Goose here is going to drop back over to his Raptors and red, or he starts on his top side, but they're watching for Graves if he's going to do his red and then go over the wall with that ward just above them.
Yeah, see if you can keep an eye on Dunlucy, as this is such a primary carry, such an important pivotal figure for the Mythos roster, even with these new upgrades across the roster they've gotten, you know, swapping out that bot lane and such. Dunlucy is just that strong of a player. He's going to start on this road right now. We'll see where he chooses to go and where Goose chooses to, what he chooses to do with that information. I mean, we've given a lot of praise to Dunlucy as well, but Goose has also been steadily improving throughout the whole season, and I think people were really starting to notice that as level 1, Kevinman and Raisins have gone aggressive onto Blundering Naff, and guys gotten a great trade for themselves there.
So, I originally had said that if Lilia wants to start on bot side, that if both bot lanes get here, Thresh and Zaya have better options at level 1 for being able to control the wave, but if Raisins and Kevinman find that potential to get the hook and go for an all-in, then it favours themselves. So they really come out there on the better of the two, and now they have full control of the wave.
Yeah, a lot of summoners been dropped in that bot lane already at the first 1 and 2 levels. Affengeist holding on to the flash and blundering with the ignite, but you can see on your screens Kevman and Raisins used everything to try and get that first kill. Now the fact that they didn't could be pretty big for Affengeist and blundering if they can stabilize.
Looks like here they should just be able to thin out the wave. Lilia's not on her way, so there's a 3-wave dive coming in or anything, so they should just get this and be able to pick up most of the CS. Lilia here, though, with our pathing, avoids Graves at all costs, and it looks like both are just happy with clearing out and doing a full clear.
Gonna go through the usual path here. Raisins having a wee look up into the jungle. Isn't going to spot Dunlucy, but might be looking for mid lane onto Manrobo. Going again, aggressive with the setup from Beartree, nailing the chains, forces the flash from Oriana, and that will be the end of it. But these summoners are dropping like flies.
Okay. So, interesting trade-off here. Nautilus, instead of securing the crab for his team with his priority, chose to go to mid lane and burn the flash. But now, because he wasn't on the wave, that means crab is now going to be contested by Mythos. And now Lilia is on the wrong side, and this is now favouring Dunlucy.
Oh, but they've got a potential numbers advantage if Chemican can arrive. Currently it's 4 versus 3, and MRG don't want to go too deep on this. But it is the crab, I believe, picked up by Graves. I know the hook came in, but I'm not sure. Yeah, oh, it's blue. So Munster, they took it.
I'm going to assume here that some ability came out and just hit it, and the smites went down, because Dunlosey is still holding on to his. So I assume Goose just managed to get in there with the smite steal. But I feel like that should have been in favour of Dunlosey, especially when the hook lands. They should have taken that skirmish and just gone with it. But Manrobbo just hiding behind Bear Tree, wasn't quite prepared with his wave, didn't want to lose out on the CS. Ultimately ends up costing on Dunlosey's set behalf.
Not ideal for them up there. As we check in this mid lane, Beartree back on the Silas, as we touched on before, does seem to be doing relatively well with it, and, you know, has a lot of decent ultimates to be stealing, and is going to be getting deep into that fight, as you said, into that short range comp, potentially healing through all the damage. So it's up to Beartree, I think, to show us what they can do on this pick after having the rough series yesterday, but it's going to be easier if Raisins is just back in the lane for you.
Yep. Well, the wave has now been slow pushing back towards Bear Tree, which creates this opportunity timer where they are going to look to go with no flash.
Oh, there's the hook once again. Raisins don't miss those, and the ignite is ticking away. Bear Tree, the benefactor of the first blood. The repeat ganks work out beautifully.
So that is a really textbook example of when you have burnt a summoner, how do I then look for the timer of when to come back? And it's effectively just on, once you've pushed the wave in, it creates a slow push coming back. You get 1 minute, execute again, and then you create or get your just rewards with the Drake here. So yeah, really nice execution there.
Yeah, Raisins doing it all so far, burning everything. Bot lane, coming mid, burning the flash, getting the kill, getting this dragon, probably even took the crab, I don't even know. Raisins is just doing so much in this game. This was one of the most exciting players that people were looking at when Munster upgraded their roster partway into the season. He's showing why.
Now, it's also, when we're looking at this, we need to think critically and say, where was blundering all of this? Like, he also had time to roam in a number of these times where he's pushed out bot lane, and that's an example where he should have been covering his mid lane or allowing him to push in, but we go to bot lane and...
Here's the play right there, Dunlosey getting down to that bot lane and punishing the summoner disparity themselves. Blundering unfortunately gets the kill, but they're still going to get the wave back.
Now what they did there is they just tried to catch the wave, and now they wanted to try and start pushing back into them. And now this is the other side, where Raisins keeps roaming towards mid lane, but now Mythos bot lane here is starting to answer out with some pressure of their own.
Oh, he's got the stolen shockwave pulling Manrobbo in. It's not going to be enough for the kill, but big damage from Bear Tree, still getting so aggressive mid.
Like, damn, Bear Tree's trying to put a clinic on. Fair play. I read that was like style points.
Oh,
he's going
he's
for the all-in.
Hold that thought. He's got the kill. He flashes out. Will he live? On a sliver. Not even close. Bear Tree does it in the 1v1.
Oh no. Oh dear, oh dear. So this is one of those moments where your mid laner just goes, I need some help, guys, just to push my wave and reset. But it's not coming because Dunlosey is playing for himself, and obviously blundering here, trying to focus on his 2v2 matchup and generate some rewards there. But it effectively leaves Manrobbo on an island here, and he's being punished for it very well by Munster as a collective unit.
Yeah, dude's been ganked twice, he's getting dived under his tower, it's all incredibly rough for the Soriana. Still hadn't even managed to hit the ultimate there, so Bear Tree punishing that little window of opportunity very, very well, and now he's got the 2 kills for himself. This could be the game where Bear Tree is set up to be that primary carry, as top lane seems to be going pretty chill, but Raisins, come on, you gotta give the guy a second to breathe.
So this is gonna keep happening until Mythos realize that they need to come here and break this. Like, the freeze has been ever present for about 3 minutes now, and no one has come to try and break it.
He flashed in, I think he got the hook as well. There's the fight going on, but Dunlosey is at least here to cover. But look at the damage coming out of both sides. The stolen collateral damage will drop Dunlosey and Manrobbo very low, but Goose snipes it out, rolling that bowling ball into the lane, and Dunlosey falls.
Well, you saw Dunlosey to come to try and break it, but Munster just put more numbers there. They had support plus jungle this time, and another example of blundering just... Well...
blundering.
Namesake. We're gonna leave it at that. I'm not trying to be too harsh here. I'm more looking at it and saying it's well played by Munster. They've set up this trap. They keep consistently punishing on it. Mythos need to answer this at some point.
Yep, that's going to be the blue buff stolen away by Munster, and the hook from Raisins doesn't land onto Blundering. They're going to just walk away with the buff, but Goose is still here, poking and prodding. He's got 2 levels and 2 buffs over Dunlossie right now. Knows the bot lane can support, but man, Goose is looking so good right now. Huge CS lead. He's got the kill from mid. It's going great for him.
And he's just looking at this, and we said, Raisins is going to be the guy who's going to be your playmaker. You give him a counter. He's been given that, and then you look over at the Tristana pick, which just keeps getting prio, stays safe, and this is MRG's bread and butter. Like, this is how they want to play. They're just letting Bertree and Raisins take over the game, and then we look over at Mythos and Dunlossie, non-existent so far.
Yeah, Sheeta getting aggressive with the Synapse, but Dunlossie once again has arrived. This time he actually has the numbers advantage, and Synapse will respect that. Goes into Mega and just lets the wave crash back, because he's coming kind of pushed in most of the time, I think, but there's just not been any attention from him the rest of the game, so they're just kind of able to farm it out.
Now, with Graves showing in topside here, that gives information over to MRG. Munster here going to look from prio in bot and mid, and then they'll start getting vision into the bot side camps, and we'll likely see a Drake start on spawn in 30 seconds.
There's a dive on the top lane right now. And Dunlossie has got the kill. The showstopper when the flash was used by Sheeta. Synapse has dropped his own as well, but that is going to be something finally successful. Mythos getting a clean play for themselves.
Clean, absolutely. Counter punch. They give up Drake, but they put topside pressure in. They take the camps away. They get the kill. Nice turn of events for them, but the handshake will come in a few seconds now. However, I think Munster did miss an opportunity here where they could have had Raisins and Goose potentially look on mid lane with the dive, knowing that Dunlossie and Cheetah were in top lane, but neither here nor there.
It is painful, dude, to look at Robo. He's had to go tier into Murktread's rush. There's just no damage coming out of this Orianna right now, and as the only AP source on Mythos' team, when we hit the mid-game team fights, that Shockwave being weak could be pretty impactful to stop these fights going the way they want. And Synapse now is going to be on the receiving end of a second gank and has no flash. It's about to go Mega, could use it to maybe get out of this one, drag back in with that Facebreaker, but will simply shove them away, scoop them back into the lane, and walk away.
So, instead of looking for a handshake on the Herald, they notice that the top lane is pushing into Sheeta, and then they look to create a situation where they could punish. Doesn't quite pull off. They chunk him out. However, Munster in that time took Drake and then began to move resources up into the top side. Now they should be looking to be able to get a Herald and a Drake for free, really.
Yeah, Munster with great objective control so far this game, and it's showing in their gold lead as well. 1,500 team gold advantage over Mythos, plus 2 dragons, plus the first Herald. It's really setting them up well going into this mid-game when we get there, and I think this is not what people really expected. We didn't expect to see Goose with the lead. We didn't expect to see so much power out of this mid lane.
I mean, when was the last time you saw a jungle have a CS lead over everyone in the game?
Yeah. I guess back in the farming jungle days of 11.2 and 3 maybe.
Like, I just give credit to Goose here. There's some efficient pathing mixed in and still applying pressure. Let's not forget here. He's still ever present. He's around his team. He's on the objectives. And he still camps up over Dunlossie right now.
Yeah.
That's just impressive in its own right. So, as we look here, though, the reset's coming out for Munster. They're powering up as they go. Looking at this early game, they're nearly 2,000 ahead with 2 Drakes in pocket, plus a Herald that will then begin to extend their lead. And I think they should start to put more pressure into mid lane after this reset. And we see how the game opens up from there.
Yeah, we do see Dunlossie getting the crab himself this time. Goose with the Herald as well. We need to see where they choose to drop it down. And yeah, we've gone into a little bit of a quieter moment right here, but with that mid and bot lane tower with a fair few plates off, they're both potentially vulnerable to that Herald play. And of course, Munster with those dragons stacking up probably does want to maintain good control of this bot side of the map.
See, you hate to see this one thing is when you build up a lead and then you get an air Drake as your reward.
Yeah.
Like, how disappointing. Certainly better Drakes out there. They'll still be able to use it and maybe go for the Drake Soul, but not going to be as impactful, which means that Mythos aren't going to feel the pressure to actually try and contest these just as early on, so they can look for better plays. Bertree here taking a bit of a chunk out, but
Shockwave committed there to catch Beartree on the tower, I guess, and he's gone quite low, but he now does not have the Shockwave, and here comes the Herald play into the mid lane. It is down below half. This should probably just knock it straight over. There's the first turret destruction. Beartree and Goose going to be the benefactors of that. Synapse tending over as well, and they've got control of bot side right now. MRG turning this Herald mid into just control of bot, and they might get both towers.
So, simply put, you're seeing Narprio.
We've got a TP behind them. We've got aggression. We've got dives. This is all about to pop off. Munster going aggressive into the jungle. They've got the shutdown though onto Beartree. Dunlossie picks that one up, and Raisin's dropping very low too. Maybe a bit over aggressive for Munster. In comes the Lilting Lullaby. It's going to get the sleep onto Graves, onto another as well. But Affenguy's chasing after towards Synapse, the wrong side of the wall. Sheeta sprinting after him, but it is just a man with his own 2 legs, and Synapse can flee for days.
Okay. I was about to say that Munster had been playing this cool, calm, and collected. They had effectively Gnar priority, mid priority because of the matchup and how it was influenced by Raisins, and also bot prio, and they were just simply making plays and rotations off of that. They got the blue buff denial, means that Man Robbo gets punished even more because he doesn't have mana, and then that fight just escalated, where they looked for a bit too much. The TP comes in from behind, they get a good flank, but Man Robbo, importantly, doesn't have his ultimate. It's not ready for the team fight.
Kevinman's going for the dive. I don't know if Affengeist is ready for this. Drops the exhaust and will live for it. Has to use the flash as well.
Kevinman just asserting his dominance, really. Nothing else to say. Gets the chunk out there, so now we should likely see bot lane turret begin to fall, and the lead just keeps extending, and Mythos haven't been able to stop the bleeding so far.
Dunlossie with a couple of kills now on the shield bow might be able to get some more done. Has a bit of money to step up into that carry role, and Man Robbo's got the ult back now and has some actual damage getting on deck. Getting towards that mythic finally after having to go defensive, and maybe as level 2 ultimate coming soon, maybe this dragon fight in 10 seconds won't be as rough as previously. Mythos taking control of the river nice and early, daring Munster to come in and check.
So they've got the control wards down, they've got the vision denial, so now they're just waiting to see if anyone's going to face check them, and throwing the Naught Q in, and we're going.
Yeah, Raisins go straight onto Sheeta, but a big shockwave catches both the bot laners, and Raisins will be the first to fall. Sheeta getting popped very, very low. In comes Synapse, slams the bot lane of Mythos against the wall, and Kevinman grabbing the resets. It's a double. Here comes the triple for the Tristana. Meanwhile, Goose is just dipping and diving, dancing around the Mythos members and slicing them off with the blooming blows. Beartree forces the flash out of Man Robbo, puts him on the wrong side of the map. I think it's just a matter of time before he falls, ticking away the damage. Beartree looking for the cooldowns, speeds up for Man Robbo, but the Everfrost will get the job done. The chains will land, and it's a blowout for Munster.
Even the crab is on Munster's side there. Actually, he used the E, hits the crab, and then goes onto the AoE effect onto Man Robbo. So, yeah, crab is definitely on the side of MRG. It's a bit biased, I'm afraid. But it looked good initially for Mythos, but then you realise the amount of resources they've burnt into killing one support, and then the rest of MRG says, no, we're going in now and pull the trigger.
Yeah, and Synapse with the massive Gnar across really turned that around. Goose, Beartree and Synapse now turning their attention toward this top side. Raisins has rocked up as well. Doesn't choose to go for that. Maybe just fears that blundering is closer than he is, but the tower will at least be a reward. It's 3-0 in tower so far from Munster. They get a lot of map control here.
Agreed, and basically it's just coming off the fact of 3 lanes of prio now. Like, they're accelerated in all the right areas, which means that they then start getting prio, and they are the beneficiaries of always being the first to move to every play. Mythos attempt to cut the bleeding by getting to a position first, like the Drake. But I think they prioritize getting the Drake over actually taking the team fight, which I think finding a better flank from Sheeta, finding something with Dunlossie onto carries, but
well, there's a pair of fights going on here. Raisin's going aggressive into the river, but on the bot side, Dunlossie's taking the fight against Kevinman. One more blast, and the burn from Red Buff isn't quite enough. It's tragedy for Dunlossie, and Raisins is there with the hook round the corner. Synapse picking up the kill. Very fine margins here, but Munster still come out on top.
That's just sadness in a bottle. That one hurt to watch. We've all been there. We've all been there when Dunlossie takes them that low, and you see the burn, and it's the last tick that doesn't take them down.
Yeah.
That's the moment where you know you're tilted.
Yeah. That's a bummer, for sure. Bear Tree pushing Sheeta off this top side. We haven't really seen too much out of Sheeta so far. Rocked up to a couple of fights, but we haven't seen the big showstoppers come through yet, whereas we have seen Synapse start to flex that Gnar power. And this is someone who, in the previous series, Sheeta was always making the big engages on the Gragas. The ults and the flash body slams were huge, starting off fight after fight, but he just can't seem to get his foot in the door today.
I mean, it's difficult for him, right? He's against a number of people that, well, Gnar being ranged, Tristana being too far back for him, and then you're throwing Nautilus, which is, yeah, he's got HP, but great. But then, not to mention, Silas and Lilia, like, if you get close to them, cause him all kinds of problems. So, I think if you're in Mythos' shoes here, and you want to come back into this game, they need to get some kind of vision control down that they can sit in, like they did with Drake, and then attempt to see who's going to face check them or make a mistake. But you're relying on Munster making the mistake. It's not something you can do proactively now. And on the other hand, I think Munster just keep playing as they have, being respectful when they needed to. For instance, just before the Drake, they actually just hung around and waited for people to get into position. And it's just a case of trying to do some textbook League of Legends with Baron spawning in 10 here, which creates another interesting piece for both teams to play around and contest.
Yeah, it's a good word for it. It is looking pretty textbook right here. They get the leads early on with some style points, some Bear Tree, and some Great Roam, some Raisins, kind of a bit more of that exciting, dynamic gameplay. Now they've got the lead, they don't really need to mess with any of that nonsense. They've got a 7k gold lead at 20 minutes, for goodness sake. They can just walk it in. They can go to the objectives, set them up properly, walk in the lanes. They're doing really, really well with that, and that's the level of play that you're going to have to bring to the UKL if you even want to have a chance next season.
Precisely. I mean, that's the problem with Munster. They always try to walk it in. Anyway, aside from my terrible memes, Baron spawning here, both teams being able to contest it or look for it. Munster should be looking to get mid-priority here as a team or a unit, push that in towards the mid lane tier 2, and then take full vision control over the Baron. In response, Mythos do one of two things where they accept that and they look towards bot lane and try to trade, or they try and find a flank when Munster try to push in that mid-wave.
Yep, now we see Munster getting that shove, walking towards the Dragon Pit once again. This pit has been favourable to them last time, and they're looking to get another round of it. It looks like all 10 members are going to be here. Another 5v5 developing. No TPs on the side of many players, Bufferman Robbo, so they've got to be here nice and early. Synapse, look at that Gnar bar. He was so huge last time, and looks like he's ready to do it again. I don't think Mythos even want to tangle with it.
And I think that's the right decision. I think there's a lot of prioritization on here of just trying to play it slow, in the sense of we don't want to give them a Drake. I personally don't put much valuation into that Drake. I think playing faster and going towards Baron control would have been a more beneficial thing for them, in terms of just how quickly you want to close out this game. Like, it bodes really well in a series if you close out as quickly as possible and you get a 25-minute, 24-minute win, right?
Yeah.
Lots of momentum based in a long series potentially.
Yeah, you can just blow them out the water, and they're still reeling from it halfway through game 2 and haven't really got the feet under them just yet. Stunlossy sliding over this wall, blundering there as well with the flash. If Kevinman is sticking around too long, oh, the hook is so close. Great attempt by blundering. Kevinman just has to go, phew, good job me, well played.
Now, I say like that, but I also know that Kevinman has cleanse, flash, and his W available, so in reality, he should have been fine even if the hook hit, but at the same time, it's one of those game-changing moments where you don't know if he's going to fully comprehend everything that's going on in the situation. That could have been the opportunity that Mythos needed, and just really not their day so far.
No. Not their game, at least. More games to go in this series, and they've got time to turn it around, but you know, both of these teams are coming off 0-2 losses in the last round. They need to get a win on the board at some point in this promotion series. Munster looking to try and get this one started, starting up the Baron at 23 minutes. Bear Tree's in the area, but Sheeta is still far from the pit, as is Man Robbo. Mythos doesn't have all the power they maybe need to turn this one around, but I'm not sure the flip is the answer, and Munster, I think, know this too.
See, I want them to do Baron, but at the same time, I want them to keep the pressure on the tier 2s and maybe only look for a 2-man on Baron. They don't need to assign 5 people like this, because otherwise Mythos can get into that position where they could walk up and steal. But MLG here, making the smart decision. They back off, they clear the vision, and they say, okay, we still have time on our sides because you're not answering the waves in side lanes and mid. And now Mythos here just trying to pick up what they can, but it's a struggle.
Yeah. Manoroba's TP was committed as well, so some small benefit has been grabbed, and the Herald was still ready. That's going into the mid lane right now, and MRG, there's a fair number of... Oh, Mythos actually gets a hook onto Goose, forces the stasis nice and early, and the box has gone down. The tower's fallen as the Herald does its job, but now Munster are recollecting into this river. Sheeta comes in through the side, Goose also over low, slams down Raisins on top of them, and there's the shutdown. Goose falling, but Sheeta might be a casualty for this. On the other side, MRG are starting to get rolling here. Kevin flashes over the wall looking for the resets. The exhaust is ticking away. There's the double. Here comes the rocket jump. Can he find the triple? The explosive shot is there. I think that's going to be enough. Goes into Manroba. It's a triple. It's massive from Keverman. What a play. The ace for Munster.
Well, that was just a demolition. I mean, it looked good. Once again, it's another fight that kind of looked good for Mythos because MLG was hesitant of if they should fight in the choke against Orianna, against Graves. They opt into not doing that, but Goose gets caught with a really good hook and then followed up by Sheeta with his combo. Jungler goes down, looks good, but unfortunately for them, the rest of MLG is extremely accelerated. You've used the majority of your resources now. You're kind of split. The Ori Ball combo isn't really landing apart from onto one person. And then there's no threat onto Keverman. And Keverman can obliterate fights like this if he's allowed to. So a really nice cleanup duty really there, and it looks flashy, so chef's kiss.
Yeah. It was very well executed by Munster there. Sheeta, though, we saw finally getting their teeth into something, gets Goose down, gets the shut down, a bit of gold for themselves, and it was a decent start to that. They catch Goose on the side, but as you say there, Keverman just is not touched at any point, and at some point this Justana just starts rolling over you. And that's exactly what Keverman was happy to do. So the Baron, taken by Munster. They've already got the inhibitor down. They're going to have all the control they could ever want for this Cloud Soul. As you say, not the most important soul, but it's nice to have.
Yeah, no complaints. Like, it's still a buff at the end of the day. Yeah. It's like a common thing within League of Legends that people tend to look at more of what they missed rather than what they have. But it's still fine. Like, but I think now they have the Baron, it's more beneficial for them to be applying pressure while they have Baron, just because it is a short buff. It's not something that lasts forever. You want to get the most out of what you have at the time. So we're seeing Goose here in top lane, just trying to hop up with minion. Ooh, I think he might be overextending though with Graves and Thresh moving here. There's going to be a counterplay.
Yeah, he's committed the ultimate already. Didn't get the stun, doesn't have his flash, but Mythos, they don't feel they have the time for this one because the Baron wave is crashing on bot side. They can never commit to a play like this with so much pressure, and that bot inhibitor's going to fall before they can even get a chance to do anything about it. Now the Dragon is live and Munster have even more control. Maybe they don't even bother with it. Maybe let's just go back top.
See, I thought there was an alternative play because of the red wards that well, it's just been removed on the screen, but they did have a control ward that was fairly deep onto this 4-man, which I think they may have been able to have Sheeta TP onto and create a flank and then pincer, which would have been a more beneficial play to them than going for Synapse here on the side lane, because even if they get Synapse, he's so tanky that he takes forever to kill that the 4-man just end up taking the inhib anyway.
Yeah, it's really a rough decision for them as the Baron wave crashes onto this top lane tower. See Tristana's explosive shot doing a lot of damage. Their Raisins throwing out the hooks. You cannot step forward and hit this cannon. Here's the short range problem of this comp that you brought up earlier, Reclamation. They just can't deal with this minion.
So here's a fun little thing though. If you actually switch the positions by putting 4 people into the mid lane and only 1 on the turret, red team actually find it a lot harder to defend. I'm now talking just like how to close out games, because I think this game we can accept that it should be done from a gold lead point from the position of the game. I think we're just in the closing stages now, but Synapse here, knowing he's going to time out, uses his ultimate. Siege is still happening. Baron minions teaming into them, so they have to fight.
Yeah, in comes Sheeta. Oh, it's a big combo with the shockwave and that haymaker. A lot of bodies falling, and Mythos are actually coming out on the winning side here. The showstop will be enough to take down Raisins, but look at the healing from Bear Tree and Goose. They're both basically full HP. Sheeta turns around and finds his whole team lying in the dirt, and Munster, off the back of a quadra kill from Bear Tree, will take game one.
So that was a lot closer than I thought it would be for a lot late game team fight. However, it's a shame that they couldn't have done that 15 minutes ago. Yeah. When that third Drake was being contested, when the gold lead was slightly shorter, could they have not turned like that and executed a play like that? But different prioritization, different calls made in the time, and it looked, as we were going through the game, to give Mythos hope. It did start to look a little bit better in their team fighting, looking a little bit to come online, but not to be.
No, not to be in game one. The early game was just a big problem for them when these teamfights came around. Yeah, as you say, Mythos, sometimes they were finding wins, sometimes they were getting advantages, but it was never enough to get them back in the game. And the big performances of people like Kevinman and Bear Tree right at the end there, really just doing so much work for Munster and putting them 1-0 up in this series. A lot of people would have predicted Mythos, and I think Reclamation, you made the right choice by not predicting anything, because now I'm not sure what to think of this series.
It looks like Munster said pressure is on. No, we're going to stick to what we know. We've come in with a clear game plan and it's working. Like, that's the beneficiary. You are the one up in the series. So now you don't have to change anything. It's up to Mythos to sit there and go, okay, guys, we need to go back to the drawing board because this didn't quite work out. Is this playable? Is there something that changes in the draft? Do we ban something? Do we change priorities? And on the other side, Munster sitting there pretty and proud. And props to Goose for shutting down Don't Low City early, like combined with Raisins. Like, jungle support duo in this game was massive. It was absolutely unstoppable from the side of Munster, and props. And I really want to see that in game 2 and more into the other games because it raises the level of the games that we're watching. So very proud.
It was huge, to be sure, and we are going to have a think about what those changes might be in this short break right here, as both of the teams definitely will be. You are all going to have to stick around for a little bit longer to see how this series go through. Can Munster make it a clean 2-0, or will Mythos fight back in the second game? Stay tuned. Welcome back. Here we are at game 2 of this series. Munster Rugby taken an early lead in a very strong performance in game 1. Mythos now. We said they were looking strong coming into this one. We're yet to see it today. What do you think we need to do, Reclamation? What do you think they need to do to activate that strength?
So, if you're going to activate Dunlocy, prioritize him in your draft. They have switched to blue side in this one, guys, for everyone watching. That means I'm assuming that they're going to look to try and take away that Tristana pick. Running that flex, so they take away something that gives easy prio. Is another feather in Dunlocy's cap if he has another lane that could get prio. Not to mention, I don't think that picking early Graves into Lilia is the way forwards. I think he should be put on a carry jungler, yes, but I think he needs to be picked later on when he can see the jungler, get a favorable matchup for himself, creating leads for himself. We've seen it best when he is prioritized and he is the one that says, I am going to go forwards. I will be the one that starts everything for us. Yeah, so let's see it happen.
Yeah, both of these junglers have wide pools as far as I can tell. They can do meta if it's available, but they both have plenty of pocket picks to bring out when the need arises, and oh boy, is the need arising right now. They need to try and find a way, as you say, to get Dunlocy activated to get some work done, because there were fights where they were, able to find, kills on Dunlocy, and they were able to play it out well and get some damage down, but the early game was so rough for them, and a lot of that seemed to stem from problems in the mid lane.
And you're hitting really onto the main points of that first game there, was how much influence Goose and Raisins were able to have in that mid 1v1, which was extended into like a 3v1 for periods of that game. I mean, rough. That freeze was brutal. And I think Man Robbo has every right to turn around to his team and say, this can't happen again, guys. If this happens, I can't play the game. And then you're looking at the jungle support 2v2 and saying from Mythos' side, like, you need to wake up, start influencing the map. You need to be answering these roams. Like, we need to find ways to get you involved in the game. Without it, I could see this being a very quickly turning into a real problem, and Munster going, okay, we'll keep doing this and it's going to hurt. So
if you're going to let us, why not? So we saw that we talked about the Thresh priority between these two supports in the first draft, and it was Blundering who picked that up. Raisins going for the Nautilus. Raisins didn't seem too cut up about the Thresh not getting there. Seemed pretty happy with the Nautilus from what I see. So do we lose a bit of priority on the supports going forward here? Or is it just like, well, just play whatever you want that feels good? But, the Nautilus was so good, it's not worth a ban though, surely. This is still just Nautilus, right?
No. Like, I think it's not worth the ban. I think the Thresh is perfectly fine. I don't think the Thresh was the problem. If anything, I think it was just the Tristana flexibility. Not knowing which matchup you're going into, so that you could have been potentially blinding your AD carry as well as your support, is not really an ideal situation to find yourself in. I think they need to maybe have a look at the drawing board and say, okay, we can get the Tristana ourselves potentially. Or we can maybe hide our support a little bit later on, just so we're not having to blind both aspects of it, so they get counted potentially in both. That's where you want to aim for. But Mythos on blue here, that should enable them to be away from those kind of things, and they can look for power picks themselves, like one of the junglers that was banned originally, like the Tristana, and really build from there.
Yes, so we are seeing so far similar bans coming in, the Udyr and the Seraphine taken away. Last time Mythos were banning the Hecarim. They obviously have freedom to leave that open now as pretty much the premier pick in the jungle on this patch. And we haven't seen the Volibear even show up at all yet for either of them, which is interesting because it was open and they just chose not to go down that route. We'll see if they choose to maybe flex into that later on.
Yep. Now, very interesting thing here was Seraphine being banned on the red side, both games in the row, which also suggests to me that one team is definitely going to prioritize it, one team will definitely pick if it's left open, so we're not going to be seeing our favourite pop star today. Tristana ban, which is the one that was lacking from Mythos last time. Smart adaptation here for your red side picks, knowing that thing is just... that Yordle is just broken at the moment.
It really is. It's too good, man. It is so insanely rough. Last time it was the Xayah for Affengeist. We have seen, similar, more late game hyper carry picks for them, like the Jinx. We saw them in the series yesterday. Actually, was one of the main catalysts in them almost bringing that series back with some of the great team fighting from Affengeist on this Jinx. So maybe that is an option they can go back to. As we see the Alistair taken away once again from Raisins, so Thresh not touched. And yeah, I think we will probably just see it just go over to whoever wants to slot it into their comp, whoever wants to pick support first will probably just take it, and then the other will answer.
So, with the bans currently laid out like this, a very real world where either Hecarim gets banned or picked, with Rel taken away here, which, I mean, it would sort their engage options. It would make that Dunlossie is the one being the decider of when to go, when to not. But he would be on something that is a little bit weaker on the early pathing, less skirmish heavy, and there are some good options into Hecarim on this patch. Namely, you can get away with the Volley Bear. Well, there it is.
There's Hecarim for Dunlossie, locked in there. We'll see what Goose chooses to answer that with. And now, so last time we're hovering over Synapse right now. Obviously, the top lane pick is unlikely here. We can touch on that matchup specifically before. The Nara went in for Synapse blind. He looked so comfortable in it. He didn't get that much jungle attention. Didn't seem to need it. Sheeta on the set found some good engages, but never really got going in that game. So I wonder if they choose to just go back for the blind pick Nara, or if it's even allowed if they want to take it off in that second round of bans.
Potentially. As you see here, Thresh locked in. Both sides recognizing that it's an R1, R2 like priority. It's just blind. It's one of the best supports on the patch. This time though, Graves locked in for Goose after a very nice early game. Into now he's just going to say, okay, I saw you play Graves. Now I'll do it better. Promise. Yeah. And now we look at the answers. I expect a support pick to come out here, and then something either flexible, either from mid lane or AD carry.
Yeah. So we saw Dunlossie, or we saw Goose, I should say, make the Lilia into Graves matchup look pretty nice for them. Is the Graves into Hecarim going to be a different story this game?
Potentially. Graves loves having other AD junglers because of the Grit passive that he allows himself to get armor from. So he's much more happy with an AD-based jungler rather than the Lilia, for example. I think in this one he's also, as I said, on a hit on Hecarim, before he hits 6, a little bit, or after the nerfs anyway, doesn't particularly like skirmishing early on. So Graves has much more opportunity in this game to start looking aggressively. As we see Jinx, Janna locked in, nice and safe bot lane. Looks like they're going to go for a peel carry composition, team fighting for later on.
Yeah, and we see plenty of options being hovered right now by Beartree going towards Keverman in that bot lane role. Obviously the Thresh has great CC engage, so things like the Kai'Sa love that one. Aphelios Thresh is kind of the classic, but it's the Kai'Sa for Keverman here. So still a traditional hyper carry pick, but lots of engage potential. And I mean, Janna seems like a decent answer to that.
I mean, okay, I like the Jinx, but I do not like the Kai'Sa answer. And my point being is that people were picking Jinx into Kai'Sa because of the range disadvantage in the early laning phase, and Jinx is just going to get full prio in the lane, and then Kai'Sa just sits there and goes, okay, what am I meant to do? She's a champion that wants to dive into the enemy team, but she's going to be diving into Jinx, Janna, Hecarim. Not my favorite answer.
It's potentially a rough one there. And last game we saw Raisins leaving bot lane a lot to help on with mid lane. Does have the Thresh, so it does have a pick that can still affect other lanes a lot, but I feel like if you do that now, the Janna Jinx is going to be right up at your tower, bullying the absolute heck out of Keverman, and he's not going to really have anything to do in that game.
Sylas and Gnar taking away two things that we know that Munster love to pick, and then Lulu and Orianna on the opposite side, just trying to prevent any hyper carry compositions. Ori Hecarim, Lulu with Jinx as well, if he goes mid lane, is also a very good answer.
Yeah, we've seen the likes of Otter picking a lot of the Karma maids and the Lulu maids recently, just buffing up their carries from the middle lane. And they took the Sylas and the Gnar away, so just took away both the solo laners from last game. These two good, don't want to see them again. And here is the Volibear right now, so that's presumably going to go up into the top lane blind.
I mean, this is also kind of like, I've not liked the last two picks, namely because if you are going to take the Volibear blind, why not pick it earlier on in the draft? And say, okay, we'll actually run that flex, and maybe they have to ban something away in the second phase. Although you've just kind of blind picked Volibear, and now you're going to get Anivia to try and block most of what they're presenting to you with the dive composition. You're going to be diving into Anivia, not the greatest place to be, and a top lane counter coming into your face as well.
Yeah, we've got the Spirit of Victoria back in the top laner here for the UKEL. Sheeta picking the Mordekaiser. So we've got a lot of AP now across the solo lanes, but Jinx providing more than enough AD across there. Nice balanced comp. But yeah, I like the Anivia for Manrobo. It does feel like a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more... I don't know if it's technically safer than Orianna. It doesn't have movement speed, but the wall is definitely a nice tool to get rid of, you know, your gank and Volibears and the like.
Now, on the one hand, I was critical of Munster Rugby's composition, but it actually all stems together to, like, we're all going in, we're all goes forwards. However, on the other hand, I'm looking at Mythos and saying, okay, you have a Jinx, a Jana, and a Nivea all wanting to peel back. Hecarim is another engage option, and then they locked in Mordekaiser. Now, Mordekaiser is a split pusher by nature. He wants to be able to take it with someone on 1v1 and then start accelerating his lead. But the thing is, it's kind of like you're going into a 4-1 composition when they could have just opted into a full team fight, which they would have won, and you could have had something like a tank that gives another engage option, which would have been absolutely disgusting to play against. Munster answer out with an RE pick, look to go side lane, realizing they can't fight on traditional means in terms of a team fight, so they're just going to go towards side lanes, place their strengths on the sides.
Yeah, so it's a strange draft coming in here today. Both teams with kind of different priorities coming into this game. It's interesting picks coming out. We do have now, so the Ahri into mid lane for Bear Tree, assuming this is the Everfrost Ahri, that seems to be the only valuable way to pick this champion right now. Is this going to be a problem for Manrobo, or are they both just going to be clearing the wave and waiting for Raisins to show up?
See, he's going to have a problem if he ends up having to go into a side lane. They can kind of get around that by having both Jinx and Anivia shove mid lane somewhat together, and that enables one of them to side lane effectively, or just kind of hovering each other. But they're going to have to take turns in that one person picks up mid wave, and that person goes to lean on the person in the side lane. And really, that's a point of pressure that Munster have that you've hit on there. I know Nymeria is going to be very, very happy that Ori has been locked in. And I think that's the way they're going to have to look at this and try and win from. Kai'Sa really doesn't have much to play off. Neither does Volibear, actually, in reality. So it's Bear Tree diff or Goose diff in early skirmishing and having to play and accelerate off that as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I must say, I do, seeing the Anivia pick from Manrobo, I do have a bit more faith that he will be able to stay safe. And like Bear Tree, of course, with the Ahri, has got good engage, but I think without Goose literally being there, I don't see him ever killing Manrobo, really. Whereas last time we saw Bear Tree literally diving Manrobo under tower and getting kills. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe they get accelerated. Maybe like last time, they get the first blood, they then accelerate with more gank pressure, and Raisins is just hanging out between Manrobo's inner and outer towers as usual, and makes his life a living hell. But yeah, we'll have to see. I think that at least Mythos will potentially be wise to that now. They maybe won't get caught quite so flat-footed by Raisins roaming this time if it chooses to go their way.
They threw down the gauntlet and they said, this is our game plan, presented to the board, and Mythos weren't up to scratch. Now in the second game, they've been able to see it. Let's see what they've spoken about, see what they are about to adapt and change. My worry here, okay, is the pathing early on. So I'm not too sure about top lane priority of who gets it 100%, as it's a melee versus melee matchup. I would assume it's going to go to Volibear. Ahri versus Anivia. Ahri should or can get the lead if she wishes to use all her mana, and then Kai'Sa Thresh actually just gets pushed in like 9 times out of 10. Now, the worry with that is you've got 2 lanes that will be pushed in for Dunlosi. So where do you start and accept that you will... I assume he has to start on blue side and path down. But that's a very binary path, which Goose, if he knows that and identifies these things, should be able to influence it and maybe push for something. So let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, we will have to see right here, and this is I'm trying to think back of how Dunlosi has done in this promotion tournament in general. We talked about how good he is and how, you know, second place jungle MVP and all that, but it seems like in this tournament in general just hasn't been able to find a footing right now, and even on picks like the Hecarim, you know, just wasn't able to really get that much done. So I'm hoping that we can see Dunlosi step back up in this game and find the dominance that we had on this player before. But at the same time, it seems to be, you know, his loss is Goose's gain, and we're seeing, like, you know, the next Dunlosi come through. It's just a jungler on like a lower placing team that is just overperforming so hard and dragging their team forward time and time again. And it's great to see both of these two players just be able to show their strength and their power despite the fact that they've had rough seasons.
And I think in this one, like, we're hyping up Dunlosi to be like he is, the key component that we need to see switch really be online for this game. But Goose has been equal and up to him in like every measure so far throughout this, just the one game so far. But into the second game, I assume he's going to carry that on, and then it's just a case of how much Dunlocy is going to be able to get done and really push on through the next game.
Yeah, we are going to get onto that next game right now, here for game 2, as we come off the river right here. I imagine once again, no excitement to be had right now. This Munster with some pick potential, but with a Jan on the other side and cleanses and Onivias, it's not the easiest task.
And we're looking at this, and the more I look at it, the more I dislike both sides of some of the answers with some of the picks and answers. But I'll gasp with what I'm given. I'm just a little worried that if MRG don't get something from Bear Tree and Goose here, that they are going to fall apart. And it's through no fault of their own that, like, it's just a case of them getting pushed in consistently, and it creates a lot of problems.
Yeah, they will have to be dealing with those problems, and if you can't deal with that, then I guess they wouldn't deserve to win the series. This has got to be the final test for them. They have to show what they're made of and what they're worth, joining the rest of these incredibly powerful teams, joining the UKEL, as we are going to get back to normal starts here. Goose on the red buff, and Dunlocy on the blue, on the blue side red buff, I guess I could say. But we will take a check back in a few minutes on their pathing, as you mentioned that, to see how they've chosen to play this one out, as this early game was so important for Munster last time. Let's see if Mythos can get a handle on it in game 2.
So he starts on bot side, gives him a better clear. However, this could run into this is me assuming that Volibear will get prior with his passive stacks over Mordekaiser, and appears to be the case so far. And what's going to end up happening here now is, because Kaiser Thresh got first to lane, I assume they'll have control over the wave, provided they play it out correctly. And this is the result.
Flashing onto Blundering with the Ignite, drops him very low. They're not going to follow up with the kill. Affengeist firing back those rockets, but it is once again Keverman and Raisins controlling bot lane early.
So they had control, they had wave control, they tried to look for the all-in, it doesn't quite come off, but now Jinx and Janna have been able to stabilize, and then Jinx range is going to start using rockets to just basically push the lane in. And I'm just seeing there, Kaiser just walks up, tries to throw an auto, and Jinx just goes, no, I'll trade with you. And that's unfortunately the lane they picked themselves into. But from all respects here, it looks like Graves just going into his full clear, Hecarim answering that with his own. Synapse there, using any prio he's got to get some vision onto Hecarim, keeps himself safe, and then he sees the third wave crash potentially.
Yeah, well played out by Synapse here. Game 1 was a very strong performance for them after X7 Raider kind of did them dirty in the last series, so great to see them bouncing back hard and taking these picks and taking this blind Volibear, and we'll see if they can make that one stick, as, being the top lane sort of weak side for Synapse, often kind of tank, utility, GT, you don't often get that many resources, but does seem to be a player who can survive just fine without them.
So you see here, Graves pathing down towards bot side, so blue team, as the response, try to get their wave to crash into turret. They just about manage it because they can't keep tanking the wave. They're out of a bind, they find their reset, and now Hecarim is onto top side, and Mord is going to be able to push in after it, so the wave is now bouncing.
Yep, Synapse will have spotted him on that cheeky red ward he placed down there and is letting Sheeta push that wave up. Dunlocy looking for something to take away. Those Krugs just about to spawn. He's just kind of hanging out right now. It's a strange place to stand, not in a brush or anything.
So he either assumes that Goose has done some kind of different pathing and then would be hitting Krugs, and he was probably asking the question of should we fight or not. Sheeta wanted to recall, so then Dunlocy's like, okay, I can't do this, and hides there. That's my assumption.
Yeah.
Ultimately, nothing happens though, and we end up onto the second clear for junglers. He's got CDR boots tier 2, so he can move quicker and get through his camps quicker, maybe put out more pressure if need be. And quiet would be the word I'd use for this early game so far.
Yeah, Raisins tried to get something going, but wasn't able to find it, and Blundering going to be watching for the classic Raisins roam. Blundering not going to be caught too late this time. No, sir. Has spotted him there, knows he's in that brush, has to assume. In comes the Hex Flash, goes over the wall regardless, but then throws the hook onto the Janna. But hang on, Dunlossie's right here. This is a 2 versus 3. Raisins goes very low. First blood picked up by Bear Tree, and now lands the charm onto Dunlossie. Can they find the kill on Ari? No, they cannot. Keverman has finally arrived. Affengeist nowhere to be seen, and it's another kill for Bear Tree. It looked like Mythos had planned for this, but they still lose the fight.
It's just a case of MRG throwing more numbers at it at the end of the day. Jinx, though, being able to take over the full wave, should try to push as quickly as possible. But Dunlossie could have walked away there. He could have accepted that, but he chose to keep trying to pressure the matchup and keeps going, and it doesn't work out for him. And, well, MRG, what looked like would have been a losing play, has now turned into Mythos falling behind when they could have opted out, and they would have been okay with it.
Yeah, and now it's a mirror of game 1. Bear Tree with the first 2 kills for MRG on this pick, which, you know, maybe wouldn't have had so much control, but now I think absolutely does. He's got that Dark Seal, he's got the Lost Chapter. Manrobo, at least, does have the Anivia passive still, I believe, and the Flash, but he's got to be, you know, got to be wary, got to have their wits about them. But at least the good thing we saw there was that Blundering was at least there in time and was tracking Raisins very effectively.
Now, as we go through here, so Jinx pushed in, and now the slow push is coming back out towards Jinx, which means for the next minute, she is going to be unavailable. What you should see here from MRG is that Volley is going to push this in, either reset or start walking towards mid lane, and this should be a free Drake take for Munster, by all accounts.
Yeah, that's it. Infernal Drake to kick us off once again, and now we see Synapse tending down into the river, placing some more wards, wants to keep control of that comfortable lane state. Dunlossie on the bot side as well as Goose too, neither of them quite at level 6 just yet, but there's a whole lot of monster vision around that Dragon Pit for sure.
And given how the skirmishes worked out and the blue buff being transferred over to Ari, it means that Ari is always going to get shoved, purely based on the fact that she can use her abilities more often, doesn't have to worry about mana, while Robbo has to be a bit more conservative. It's just a natural part of having an Anivia and also a Hecarim in the game, where both of them are fairly mana-hungry champions. And as a result, no mid-prio, no bot lane, well, a counter or shove coming back off bot lane, results in that Drake for them.
Yeah, it's great to see that Munster are continuing to play around vision so heavily in this. Oh, hang on a second. Bear Tree gets walled in, but gets the charm, and bot lane Affengeist has found the kill onto Keverman. Man, Robbo saves his egg by the skin of his teeth, but bot lane, the fight is still going on. Raisins chased away by Dunlossie. Now Goose has arrived. Blundering's going to escape the hook. Smokescreen comes in. This is a 3 versus 1, Goose. This is a bit ambitious. I think he realized it at the last minute. Tends to walk away.
Jana there with nearly like the tornado of like some ungodly level of prediction, using Jana Q behind him as he's running so that he gets knocked up. They 1v1 here, but they're both level 6 as Mordekaiser has his ult and stealing stats.
Yeah, they're in the Death Realm, and that Whirling Steel is burning away at the bear, and Sheeta finds the kill in the 1 versus 1. Synapse have been doing so well, but that's going to throw a spanner in the works.
And from all intents and purposes here, at the end of the day, top lane pulls slightly ahead, just because benefit of Shri of the kill. On the other side, you've also got Kaiser Thresh, which then try to make something happen, and we really go from there.
Yeah, so we've got bot lane looking good for Mythos, top lane as well, mid lane happily in Munster's favour, and jungle, who knows? They're both trying to make something happen, but I mean, Dunlossie with the Hecarim, I feel like this is gonna be, he's gonna be more comfortable, he's gonna be more impactful going into this mid game, because this is Hecarim, this is where he thrives.
And ultimately, I mean, as we see things play out again, Munster are just being the team that are playing around when they have priority in their lanes, when they have slow pushes being built, and Mythos aren't timing when their slow pushes are being crashed like to the level that it needs to be so that they can contest these objectives. So Munster finding first Drake, finding first Herald, and it's purely just based off when these waves are being crashed. And ultimately, there's no response really so from Mythos.
Yeah, not just yet. So we can see Sheeta now once again stepping up and aggressive. Has the toe caps, has the bramble vest, getting towards what might be a Bami's, for they just go full tank, I guess. Probably not though, but that's still rough enough for Synapse. Just those 2 items on their own make those long trades much more painful for Volibear.
So I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, although we need to have a consideration here, right? Although they are down on neutral objectives, MRG are making an investment. They'll pick up some of the gold lead that they should have from this bot wave now. But the Herald is going to come in, which should extend their lead by a few hundred gold, assuming that the turret doesn't go down. It's just the 2 plates. But my worry is that they need to be accelerating a little bit faster as the kills are on RE. But how much pressure is he really going to be able to put out into that matchup and go from there, really? So, yeah.
Well, in comes Goose from the side, drops the smoke screen. Bear Tree with the ultimate hasn't committed it, doesn't want to go for the charm, but you're absolutely right. Man, Robbo is significantly up in CS now and winning these trades out despite being down. This is not the same story we saw in Game 1 where Bear Tree got an advantage and then ran with it really well.
And as we watch more of this, I mean, Mythos here, Sheeta in top lane is going to slowly start pulling even further ahead now. He's accelerated himself in the 1v1 matchup. You start building and itemizing towards damage. And if you're even with a better scaling composition, you're very happy with that. Like, it's up to MRG to be pushing the lead. And so far, although it is just some neutral drakes, like, we know it's not going to be Infernal. We know it could be an Ocean or a Mountain Drake, but they're really needing to hit on like how fast they can get to their Drake Soul condition to outweigh Mythos' scaling composition.
Yeah, for sure, as we can see Sheeta once again just crashing these waves one after another. Goose was around but goes for the recall. Dunlossie is now on this top side doing the crab right now, but Synapse is diveable, I think, at this HP total and realizes that, gets the base off himself, loses some minions for the trouble though.
And I mean, from game 1 to game 2, the difference here is that Raisins can't find good opportunities to realistically roam, and
Affengeist, meanwhile, has gone down. Keverman have found the opportunity to get that done. Another hook lands from Raisins. They think about it, they don't commit to it. 1 kill is enough for the MRG bot lane.
I was just going to compliment their bot lane from Mythos in containing Raisins, but...
Oh wait, the stuns and the ult combos from Dunlossie and Manrobbo have split up Goose and Bear Tree. Heckram's dropping very low, but blundering with the clutch. Janna shield gets the shutdown over to Manrobbo. MRG too aggressive in the jungle, punished heavily by Mythos.
Yep. So, we've gone from, I was about to compliment Mythos for saying they've just used priority from bot lane to neutralize Raisins. They find the 2v2 all in. And then they start playing around the Ahri, which I've been telling Munster to do, and then they lose that fight with the Scub. So basically, whatever I'm saying at this point, just flip the script. And
it's all good.
Yeah.
Very, very tough right now, and Mythos are going to take the opportunity to get onto this second dragon, get that one evened up nice and quickly. They've got themselves a 500 gold lead, the kill's back in their favour. Goose still has the Herald, timer's running low though, he's going to have to find somewhere to put this.
And it's not going to be a good opportunity for them, unless Mythos here, he manages just to find it when they're on their resets. But Mythos, while they was ahead, they took their reset, so now if they use Herald, it's not going to be pre-planned. It's not going to be great. Shouldn't really generate too much for them. And, oh, here you go. Here's the usage. It's already going to be spotted and seen.
Yeah, drops it there, and the wave has already gone down. Manrobbo is there, ready and waiting, thinning out the wave, and should be able to get this one off the table without too much trouble. Yes, it'll get some plates, but, you know, that's not that exciting, really, considering how hard of a time Bertie's going to have pushing this wave after this point.
Now, using that pressure from there, he draws 1 or 2 people towards mid lane, and then he's decided to switch over towards bot lane, trying to see if Janna or Jinx will be caught while they're walking between their tier 1 and 2. But looks like they're not going to fall for it. They're just waiting until they get the numbers here, or whether the hooks might still come out.
Raisins does get spotted up by Affengeist, checking the bush with the zap and doesn't get hooked for his trouble. So more plates dropping down for Keverman there, and Munster at least getting some advantage back in the spots. And Raisins, once again, the hook doesn't quite land. The Goose is here, blundering, looking pretty low, but Manrobbo is here to support as well. A lot of bodies down in this bottom lane. Munster trying to get this bot tower, trying to get that first turret gold.
You're just seeing both mid laners here pick up their waves and instantly start moving towards bot lane as the point of contention. And in the meantime, in top lane, just 2 melee dudes having a good time, chilling, and nothing really being happening.
Just guys being dudes up in this top lane. They've got pretty much exactly even CS done. Lossie actually pushing Bear Tree away, getting aggressive as Manrobbo arrives back. And now Keverman and Raisin still standing aggressively on this bot side, though. I wonder what Munster wants to do. If they want to keep throwing bodies down to this bot lane, they want to punish Manrobo. Both these towers looking pretty shaky right now.
Yep. And on the one hand, I look at this matchup and I say that Mythos could have opted in just to having a melee support that would beat Thresh up, basically. They chose for the Janna. Janna is like one of these enchanters that it's good when ahead, but if it ever goes even or falls behind, then you lose full control over the wave. Thus, now you've seen a flip in the matchup where Jinx normally would just be able to get Prio versus Kai'Sa. Flip the script, we were able to get bot lane for Munster, and that's a win really for them. Ahri here with Prio, but looks like second Herald being picked up by Mythos.
Mythos going to take that, give an opportunity to even that gold back up. Top lane looks like a viable target, bot lane as well. So, now that Munster have broken this bot lane tower, we see Kevman and Raisins maybe tending toward this top side. We're just going to go for the full lane swap here?
I mean, they're going to lane swap, but they're about to find out that Herald has, or is already gone, making this entire swap kind of null and void. I mean, the only beneficiary of this really is Keverman because he picks up a slow push wave. So Synapse falls a little bit further behind it as 1v1 matchup because he's not going to get any waves. Like, look where Jinx is stood freezing the wave right now.
The flash Death Realm onto Keverman, and Dunlossie is here to pick up the pieces on the way out. TP from Bear Tree, maybe they can find something. Keverman is so low, and he just dies in the Death Realm. The fight's already over. Dunlossie is here though in a 3 versus 1. Needs to try and stay alive, gets charmed, gets hooked, drops the ultimate just to get some damage down, and now Sheeta is left trying to fight off the members of Munster, but it won't be enough. Blundering was nearby, but doesn't rock up, and Munster, they get the 2 for 2 with what looked like such a bad fight for them, with Keverman going down early.
2v2, Jinx in the meantime holding her wave, like she's just been literally farming this entire time. Anivia is also doing likewise. So in reality, although it goes 2 for 2, in terms of waves of who got prioritized, it goes in favor of Mythos. And yeah, there's a little bit of temporary disadvantage, and Mord might lose a wave or 2 in top, but ultimately not really losing all too much.
We have the Divine Sunderer for Synapse as well. How do you feel about this pickup coming off of Volibear?
I think it's the appropriate one. I mean, he's against Mordekaiser, he's against Hecarim, 2 guys that are going to be building tanky. Picks up the turret though, but I think in that one he's kind of happy actually into the end of the day. I know I said the statement about the waves, but if you're going to pick up a turret and also waves on top of it, then bonus points over to MRG. Is it enough though? Like, they've built a 1-2k gold lead now, and we're getting to that pivotal point where it's going to be a mountain soul of whoever gets that soul. That's kind of the big condition for Munster. But Mythos, having picked up an air drake already, slows the game down by an extra couple of minutes, which falls into their favor.
Yeah, now we see the river control picked up by Munster, but Dunlossie drops the Herald, goes straight onto Raisins, forces the flash from the Anivia wall. Keverman, though, can pump up a lot of damage. It's a big onslaught of shadows, but Dunlossie pops at the hands of Bear Tree. Super Mega Deathstroke does a lot of damage back, and Manrobo can just step away with that blizzard burning them down, and Munster left in full retreat from the TP from Sheeta.
And in the meantime, just saying that Herald was able to take mid lane and now start pushing down. I think he got a second charge in the meantime as we look at the Drake there. And bonus points for Mythos. They got the TP in. Dunlossie does go down, but he finds a 3-man ult, which is then followed up by damage from Anivia and Jinx. And overall, very nice play for them. Like, they're very happy with that as they can now move on to the next phases of play with the standing gold left in top, bot, and really trying to work their way through that.
Yeah, this is looking so much better for Mythos right here. This is more what I expected from the series starting in Game 1. It's very even across the board. Plenty of plays being made by both sides, kind of going tit for tat, blow for blow right now. Synapse now going to shove in this wave. Sheeta happy to catch that one. Maybe he wants to opt into this fight. Not sure who actually wins this one right now. Synapse thinks he might be able to. He's got but Dunlossie is there in the wings. This could get a bit dangerous. Sheeta pulls him in with that claw, and Synapse still hanging around Dunlossie. Going to be coming in very, very quickly. Synapse with the flash. Sheeta is maybe not going to be able to catch him. They'll let him go.
Let him go. And ultimately, though, now we're looking at MRG. You did assign 2 people towards top lane. You should lose something in return. Bear Tree, having seen the jungler, knows that he will be safe. And Keverman going big here.
Nails the Prey Seeker, and the hook from Raisins to follow it up. It's a shutdown for the Kai'Sa. Big gold injection. Very much what they want right now.
Now,
it's close, but it's not good enough.
Shame. So, as I said, Dunlossie showed his face in top lane. That's information giving over to MRG, who can then make a counterplay. They force down mid lane. Kevin Mann recognizes this. Man Robbo tries to defend something that he realistically cannot. And then Kevin Mann just lands the W, finds the assassination, and goes from there about his day.
So, what do you think is the reason that Mythos is on such a more even playing field from game one from Munster? They're very different drafts on either side. Is it just the picks and the priority and the counters coming through, or is it something they're doing differently in their gameplay?
Well, for one, Mythos did assign more numbers towards the mid lane skirmish, which definitely helped Man Robbo through his matchup. He's then been able to wave clear, and he's not in like panic mode where he has to consistently needing support to play the matchup.
Didn't have to rush Murtreds.
Precisely. And on the other hand as well, they've kind of kept track on Raisin's roaming and slowed him down a bit, and the jungle matchup isn't massively favoured to one side. There's counterpoints that can be made for both in team fights. So I think Mythos just came out with better track of the roaming and just overall the draft in terms of what they got, in terms of priorities and team fighting, just suits them so much more.
Yeah, it is still a Munster gold lead for now, about 3k, but it definitely doesn't feel like that. It feels like they're on pretty even parity right now as they catch Raisins coming through the jungle, and they will take him down very quickly, but Dunlosi takes a fair bit of damage himself and has to step away. Nice little pick there, though.
So, Man Robbo there, throwing the CC over the wall, knowing that he doesn't have flash after he used the wall earlier that burnt the flash.
Kevinman, okay, he wants it. He's dropped the ultimate for that too.
Just having a cheeky little look to see if he could pick something up on the wayside, but ultimately I think Hecarim there is still going to be safe, gets out of there as Jinx looks to stop another recall from Graves and burns the flash, and we're really just seeing Man Robbo throwing Qs over walls and trying to find people with what little vision they have, and it's really starting to burn resources from Munster.
Yeah, that Anivia is getting real scary. You've got the fully stacked tier and the needlessly large rod in inventory. That's going to become a Ceres before long. Big little power spike for Man Robbo, and he's only going to get stronger. I'm looking over at the side of Munster. They don't have that much tankiness to offer, you know. Goose isn't going to have too much going forward. Synapse as well has got a lot of HP, but maybe Anivia's just going to be burning through that.
And as we see this game unfold before us, it's a 2,000 gold lead. That's not a lot. In terms of the competitions when they team fight, Mythos are going to be favoured because of the engage options they have, having the beneficiary of 2 tanks, and then also just natural damage of 2 resource carries in Anivia and Jinx. And I look over on the other side and I'm like, MRG, you really need to start hitting in these side lanes. Like, we need to get Ari basically applying pressure and starting to like dive on these tier 2s. If you slow down this game anymore, it's not quick enough. Like, they're gonna scale.
Yeah, and Kevinman's gone for the Serpent's Fang second as well. So there are a fair amount of shields coming through for Mythos, but this is, I feel in general, it's not the most, you're not accelerating towards your 3-item power spike as fast as possible going this way. This is an adaptation he had to go based on the composition for Mythos. He's maybe not going to have as much damage, but Beartree goes deep in with his ult charges, gets the charm onto Man Robbo, followed up by Hope from Raisins, but oh my goodness, Beartree left in the team of Mythos and gets destroyed. Another hook from Raisins will slow down Sheeta, but not enough. The Death Realm has been called, and Synapse fighting this 1v1 that he has not had too much luck in earlier in this game. As my feed freezes, but we're going to come back through and nobody goes down. Very tense engagement in that river, but Mythos goes straight back to the Dragon Pit.
And I'm just viewing this here now that, like, we look at the options thrown. They managed to get onto Anivia, but Anivia pulls away, but Munster are still looking to test this position.
Yeah, it goes into the Dragon's going to be picked up by Dunlossy, but Kevinman dives in with the Praise Seeker, just getting more damage, or the Killer Instincts, I should say. A lot of low health bars for Mythos. Raisins landing these hooks one after another, but Kevinman dives very far away. Goose now left on his lonesome. There goes the shield. Bow shield keeps him alive a little bit longer. Dunlossy trying to finish him off. He gets to run over Goose, and Affengeist is solo. Beartree has died and returned, and now Sheeta is solo Affengeist as well. There's no ultimate for him. He's going to find the charm. There's the double for this Ari. Can he find another? Gets a speed boost. Affengeist might be able to use the charms or the traps. Has the flash. He wants it. He doesn't quite have the ult. The charge is about to come online, but the cooldown just too long. So,
looked good for Mythos. This is like the story of the game. We keep saying this. Mythos, it looks good for them, and then they keep overreaching, overchasing. They either use too many resources onto one person, and this is another prime example. They managed to pick the kill off onto Beartree,
And then they looked for more on Synapse with the Mordekaiser ultimate. They were prepared when he comes out. But the thing is that they just keep trying to team fight into other people on top of it. And then Bear Tree has so long to just come back into the fight with the TP flank and then clean up everything. Yes, they got the Drake, but now they've lost Baron. They've given the one condition that MRG has to even attempt to win the game by going into a 1-3-1 and playing around Ari. That is the only condition they have, and they've just played right into it.
Yeah, and now Munster holding the Baron buff as their reward. Mythos did get the Dragon, they're on Mountain Soul Point, but that is nothing on the Baron buff running them down right now. And if Munster, they can start doing this 1-3-1 right now, it's going to be devastating with the lane prior they're going to have.
As we see, these are the initial steps of the setup here, so they're going to look for mid lane prio, and then going to try and take vision control, I assume, into the top side. And then from there, they will then try to use the top lane waves. I think Synapse, though, has made a little bit of a mistake by not picking up the top wave as they look for Sheeta here, but he shouldn't go down.
With no fear right now. I mean, if he drops the Death Realm, does Keverman still win that one? Maybe he does. It is Kai'Sa.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think it was going to happen because the turret is so close. But my worry here is you've just used mid-prio, they got all the vision in, and this should be the wave that they will now want to try and play off or rotate towards. Enemy team has a Nivea. Like, you're going to try and siege against a Nivea? Good luck.
Raisins comes through with the Hex Flash, takes a bit of damage and is finding the hooks, but will be the first casualty if this fight gets eaten up and spat back out by Mythos, punishing the aggression.
Yep, and that's the punishment of just slow tempo. Synapse not picking up that top wave, he would have been here about 30 seconds earlier, and he would have been pushing onto that tier 2. Gives a window for Mythos to punish, and they say, thankfully, that they take full control of the situation with that one.
Synapse now feeling a lot more confident in this 1v1, it seems. Sheeta knows it, doesn't feel too great about it, gets another pull in though, and now Manrobo is coming through to assist. Does he want to commit to this fight? Another Q lands, but Synapse calls the fight off himself.
Manages to pull out of there, but this is another example now where you've seen the Anivia in top lane, which means that you can apply pressure to the opposite side of the map. As Munster say, thank you very much. You don't have an Anivia here. We'll gratefully be taking this bot lane turret.
Back to the textbook from game 1, open at the same page and following the same rules. They're getting the advantages for it as well. At least Mythos have greater range this time, but when they're being dragged around the map, it's not going to matter too much. So Munster, they've extended the gold lead to 5k right now, despite being down in dragons and kills. This is great play by them, and it could be enough to see them back into the UKL, whereas Mythos, they're on the last legs here. They've got no more second chances. They need to find a way back in here ASAP.
They need to win now while they can, and I mean, there's a lot of standing gold left on the map in terms of turrets for them that they just haven't been able to get to. But the main thing that we're going to hit on here, this Drake fight coming up, it's Drake Soul for Mythos. Like, if they get that and don't lose the game after the team fight or the resulting team fight, absolute win. Like, it now becomes very, very difficult for MRG. As we see here, both teams going in for their setup. Munster looking for any control they can get, knowing they might need a pick if they want to try and get a decent team fight off, because 5v5, despite the gold lead, is still extremely difficult for them.
Absolutely. Raisins has been the one going for those picks recently, but the last time he found one, he traded his life for it, and nothing was achieved by Munster. So playing with a little bit more safety here, but Keverman has not been playing with that much safety. Has been looking for ways in to dive in and find kills himself. The bot lane of Munster, such a power point for this roster, and is being really, really impactful in this series so far. Now they've got the vision advantage. They find hook onto Affengeist. It's the perfect target. Dunlosi comes over the wall, and Jinx has stayed alive. Synapse being bullied on that side. Dunlosi does fall, though Munster, maybe they've turned this one around. Bear Tree diving forward, and Jinx will fall as well. Keverman with the killing spree. Manrobo left on his own, dodges the hook, flashes the safety, will not fall down, but that is 4 for none. This could be Munster. Keverman flashes over the wall onto the Nivea, can't quite get the kill. There's the egg! If they can get onto him now, that's the ace, and this could be the game.
That could be game. What should have been, or could have been, Mythos' turn to fight. They walk through mid lane, Jinx gets caught, she still has cleanse, and then manages to go down. They have to use so many resources to keep her alive, and then MRG take full control of the game from that. And wow.
Wow, Munster Rugby Gaming off that perfect pick from Raisins. The Stags will trample one of the UKL's longest standing teams in Mythos. Munster is here to stay, and we will see them back in the summer split.
And on the one hand, we all thought today Mythos looked the better of the two yesterday, but it just goes to show that form means nothing. And at the end of the day, MRG, the pressure was on, and they showed up with a strategy that worked in game one. Mythos tried to answer, and then they were actually given what, in my eyes, a worse composition, and they just took full control over the fundamentals in the game, watching for chokes when you have positions or positional advantage, trying to find the hook, landing skill shots into people with no vision. They punish everything possible and pick up the win from it.
It was so well done. What a beautiful pick onto Affengeist. What the perfect hook from Raisins to sew that game up. You couldn't find a better target, and the fight looked tough, but then ultimately it's Keverman flashing over the wall to get the last tiny tick of damage to knock down Manrobo, and then they can sew it up from there. Such fine margins once again, but Munster play it out well. They get the win. The last time they were in this kind of pressurized situation fighting for playoffs, they couldn't make it work, but today they absolutely do, and they absolutely deserve to be in the UKL in summer.
Absolutely. And congratulations to Munster for retaining their spot, but at the same time, while we are congratulating them for staying, there's a lot of work that needs to be put in between now and the start of next season if we don't want a repeat of this. And also commiserations to Mythos. As you said, one of the longest standing organizations here with us, and we look or hope that they will be recreating a team. Potentially, we might see some new faces on that roster as the promotion tournament comes around again in due time. Yeah.
Big commiserations for Mythos, but them's the beats. Someone's got to drop out, and today it was Mythos. So our three teams promoting back or promoting into the league: X7 Esports, Resolve Academy, and Munster Rugby Gaming. They will be joining the rest of them for the summer split, and that has been it. This has been the last broadcast of the UKL. Now, I guess you'll all just have to go and watch LEC and EU Masters, but don't worry, we will be back in the summer before too long, and we've got the Student Proving Grounds on the horizon too.
Absolutely. Some great initiatives being put in place here for the grassroots of UK League of Legends. I highly recommend that you go check them out. There will be some student talent put on show. You may also have friends there. A number of students also already play in our leagues, so you may be seeing some people or fresh faces as well alongside them, and seeing if they can contest them, and maybe we see a lot of them coming into the UKEL, and you can start actually seeing some of the faces, building the brands, going from there and getting to know them. So yeah, absolutely. The UK scene coming on in leaps and bounds, and I am absolutely here for it. It has been a wonderful day of casting. It was a short one, but a good one for sure. I have been Trajan, joined by Reclamation, and that's going to wrap up the UKL Spring 2021 season. Thank you all so much for watching. Big shout-outs to Phil on production. I don't know how many hours this guy has streamed this season. I feel like it's too much. But, you know, if he's always bringing you guys great UK League of Legends, then we'll work him just a little bit harder for you. Thank you all for watching. Keep an eye on the socials. Jump in the Discord. Check the Twitter. We will tell you all when we'll be back, how we'll be back, and you guys don't want to miss a single second of it. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the future.